morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Join you as always with myself, Ewan Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger. We do hope you're all good and well. And with third place wrapped up, as I seem to be saying this every week, but why wouldn't you be? Another European multiple trips guaranteed after. Even though we didn't actually win against Celtic at the weekend, Kilmarnock did, which ensured our place at least in the Europa Conference League. But obviously, first and foremost, our qualifier in the Europa League will be a guarantee and guaranteed European group stage football. Obviously, that's going to be part of our talking points throughout this podcast, and obviously, as I just mentioned, a brief over the Celtic game where we lost 3-0. We will look also at the awards as well that took place the other night there. Most noticeably, our captain and striker Lawrence Shankland, who won Player of the Year, the first player to do so outside of the old firm, I believe, in 2013 or 2012, around that time anyway. But it has been at least 10 years since a player outside the old firm has actually won the award. Also, Hearts themselves also had their awards as well. So we'll go through some of the winners of the categories as well, and we will wrap things off with a brief preview of the visit from Dundee, who come down to Edinburgh on Saturday to Tynecastle. So we will end it on that. So as always, guys, it's been a fantastic year for us personally in terms of new subscribers and new faces to the channel and all of our socials. So once again, with just a few games left before the season ends, if you haven't subscribed via our YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you want to check us out and give us a follow on any of our socials as well, please feel free to do so. All will be on screen and in the description as always. So as always, we do hope you enjoy this one and hope you're all good and well this Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, of course. And as you can tell, with myself and Alan doing the jobs we do, just one day or 1 week all just rolls up into one, which I'm sure most of you who watch the channel will know too well. So, Alan, as I just said there, coming off the back of a 3-0 loss to Celtic, we still managed to guarantee European football for next season. Obviously, before we talk about the positives of the weekend, we can have a wee chat about the Celtic game. Obviously, it wasn't, a huge game in the sense for us, as obviously it was more Celtic that were a kind of more up for the game as such as well. We know they're in a title race with Rangers at the moment, so either way, the result didn't really mean much for us as such. But from what you watched the game and highlights, etc., and the key moments, not that it actually matters, but what were your thoughts, sir?
It's like you say, it's one of those games that like I watched it. Obviously, I'd been away for the weekend and kind of stayed off of all sort of socials and things, or stayed off them as best I could, due to just wanting to enjoy my weekend and not really think too much about Hearts. And obviously, we've got quite a good record against Celtic this season, so I was kind
Huh?
of thinking, well, why not? Let's try and get a treble over them, but it was more in hope than expectation. I didn't really expect anything, and we didn't really get anything. We, as you say, they're not going to go through every single moment, but started with back three again, which we seem to do against Celtic and Rangers, aside from when we play them at Hampden, apparently. Um, and yeah, it's funny because I don't actually think we were that bad. Like it's, and I said this to you, and I've said this to many, many other people that the game it just unfolded exactly how it should have or how it was always going to. Like we gave them an early goal because apparently that's just what we do. We don't like to start games well apparently against Celtic Rangers or really anybody for that matter. Um, yeah, it was just we had a few moments, but there wasn't really a lot that you could take away from it and go, oh well, you know. But yeah, it doesn't matter, does it? It really doesn't matter. Like I'm struggling for things to say
Yeah.
because why does it matter? Like Celtic are a team, as you said, that are going for a title. Whether they'll win it or not, I don't know. I don't know. I still feel like, I mean, obviously there's still an Old Firm derby to play, so I think that'll probably decide who wins it. But yeah, it just Celtic had something to play for. We were on the beach. Like it's kind of like I can't remember if our awards, like the Hearts official awards, were before it or after that game, because I know the PFA ones were after it, but I think the Hearts ones were a couple of days before, so might have been nursing some hangovers perhaps.
Possibly.
But I've never I've never cared less about a game of football in my life, and
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but I'm just like, aye, all right, you know, it's disappointing. Obviously, you know, you get lots of Celtic fans saying, "Oh, you know, you turn up against us and you lie down against Rangers." I think that's been very much put to the bin with that game that we just played against them. We've still got to play Rangers as well, but it's yeah, we played it how I thought we would. You know, we tried to have a goal. We had a few chances. I know Shankland had one, Devlin had one that I thought he maybe should have scored. It was a good save from Joe Hart. But yeah, it was again the individual moments again. You know, individual moments again is what's done it for us. But again, like I said after the Rangers semi final at Hampden, I've seen us play a lot worse than that against Celtic, and I've seen us play a lot better than that, but I've certainly seen us play a lot worse than that.
Hmm. I mean, what you were saying there, like about struggling to things to say, I had a random thought that just came in to my head at this moment. If I'm to put my mic up here, and I've literally just gotten back in from work, and I got my jacket on, mate, I am vibing Martin Tyler. Like, look at this, it's fantastic, Bow. You know. Anyhow,
It's
sorry. Like while you were talking there, I thought, oh, I fucking like jack up here, the mic up, they're fucking vibing. But anyway, back to
fair.
the actual football. Yeah, like once like again, like we've conceded quite a few early goals against the Old Firm throughout the season, and obviously Tabernal Lovers. When the first goal went in, it was only after like 4 or 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
you just kind of switched off, not for for any sort of like any frustrations or aggravations as such. You just we all knew going in to this game that as you said at the start, there wasn't really anything to actually play for, like so my 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 mind in terms of being interested was a bit far away. I mean, just for, for the goals as well. Like for the corner that they actually had. Again, it's been we've been relatively good in terms of our defense throughout this year, but it was a case of just switching off, and then the header from Kyogo, was it taken well, and then yeah, I didn't think that we were actually bad. It always it's happened obviously against Celtic, and then from the semi final as well. We actually started to look a bit tighter once we conceded, and obviously it is a bit counter like productive, but that seems to be the way. But yeah, I think like I was speaking to my granddad just last week as well, who's a Celtic man, and you know he was actually on the other side where he was a bit concerned at the fact that their last two results against us, and then he was uh, convinced that we weren't. Well, sorry, that they weren't going to come away with anything, and I don't know if that was just like I'm trying to play mind games with me or whatever. But I think we always knew that, like, we were 99.9% that we were gonna lose that game, because once Celtic on their day, especially at Celtic Park, any team that comes there, they are like difficult to actually beat, and is especially if a title is at stake and how close it actually is. It wasn't ever going to be any other result, um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the overall like sort of game, again, I didn't think we were terrible. I didn't think that we were exactly great either, but um, you know, one thing that I did want to actually mention, and like, even if it was the only thing, because obviously I saw a post that you retweeted, I think, and it was Natty Atkinson. Now, I don't know if it was just through choice or if it was through some sort of injury or or whatever, but um, obviously, Dexter started the actual game, and I didn't think he was amazing, but like this is how it is. But consider for next season, where do you think Atkinson's head is at in terms of his role for next year? Because obviously, I think he's been good, Atkinson, but I don't think he's been that overall right back that we need. I think a perfect example of that was our, long serving Michael Smith, where even though he was at 33 or 34, he kind of still had his all round game as a right back, where he can get at attackers. He can move the ball up the field. He can score goals as well. I kind of had that all round like package as a right back. So I think we could probably all agree that for next season we'll be in the market for a new right back. But the question I did want to ask you: do you think that Naismith is going to be in the market for a more kind of vocal right back, or do you think that he might try to persevere with Atkinson to be the main right back at the club?
I think it's a difficult one. I think, people know that have listened to this podcast for a long time know how I feel about Atkinson. And I saw his post. It was an Instagram post that he put up. Lovely dog he's got. That's
Oh yeah,
another reason that I adore.
absolutely gorgeous, no?
I adore that man and his dog. So yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. But yeah, like Matty Atkinson is a decent football player. You wouldn't have international caps if you weren't. You wouldn't be the starting right back for your country if you weren't good. At least
Yeah,
at some level.
of course.
Natty's problem, I think, initially was he couldn't stay fit long enough to get a run in the team, which is why obviously when we had Michael Smith ended up playing more games than he probably should have at that stage. But because he's reliable and dependable, we just carried on, and Atkinson played when he got in, but then inevitably he'd get injured and be out again. This season, he's been okay. I think Natty has been okay this season. I don't think he's been particularly brilliant, but he's done a job. Obviously, we had Odella Faya for the first half of the season. I saw him starting for Brighton the other day, which was bizarre. And he came off the bench.
No.
He came off the bench in another
Good for
game
him.
as well, which is nice to see, obviously, because
Yeah.
he's had his health issues and stuff. So it's nice to see that he's over that now, hopefully, and can continue to play. But yeah, then obviously we bring in Dexter Lembakisa, who had a lot of early promise and actually didn't look like a bad option. But I think as the games have gone on, he's very similar to Natty in the sense of he wants to get forward. He enjoys getting forward, but defensively he gets tested a lot, and a lot of the time he doesn't stand up to that test. So yeah, I think for the summer, I think it's clear that the club are going to be looking for a right back. Naismith's basically said that it's a priority position. And I think, for me, like Natty Atkinson's 24, so he's not in the, peak prime age of his career, I would say. But I think what Natty needs is somebody to maybe take the pressure off him a little bit, because he's good enough. Like I say, Natty Atkinson is good enough to be the starting right back for Hearts, but I think there needs to be better competition for him. I think, and I've said this before about him as well, about the systems that we play with the back five and the back four. Natty seems to play when it's a four, and Lembakisa seems to play when it's a five, which I don't think helps either, to be honest. I think Natty needs to be pushed a little bit more, maybe by a more senior professional, maybe somebody that's maybe older than Natty, maybe 26, 27, somebody that comes in and goes, right, I'll be the starter and you can play when you play. And it'll be up to Atkinson whether he wants to do that or not. But I think people are very, very quick to be like, oh, we should get rid of him in the summer. We should get rid of him, get rid of him, get rid of him. When they reel off names of multiple players. And I don't think it's that. I don't think we need that.
No.
Especially if there's interest in the fullback on the other side of the pitch in Alex Cochrane, which could happen.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to have to, change two of a back four, for example, in one summer window. But yeah, listen, I like Natty, and I think he's always very good at coming out after a game and saying I didn't play well. I will say the one thing about the Celtic game that I have to point out: the substitutions made absolutely no difference. They just, again, I think they were all on the beach. But yeah, look, I think right back is a position that we'll go for in the summer. There was some people talking about the boy at St Mirren, Australian as well. I think his name's Strain, Ryan Strain,
Of
is
course, he's
somebody that,
Australian and all.
of course he is. Of course he is. We shop in that market, mate. Even if he's in Paisley, which is great. So that could be an option. That could be an option. But I think Natty needs somebody that's going to push him on. I think that's the main point for me. And I don't think Dexter does it enough. And I don't think Odell Ofaya did it enough while he was here either.
Mm. And well, I mean, Alan, I'd like, yeah, like I mean, I don't know with the. It is a difficult one because obviously you've said on his day he can be a good asset and quite a bit feisty as well. Actually getting in to the nitty gritty of any game like as well. But for me, I think it's the consistency level that that kind of not puts me off them. I'm not in that camp where I think we have to get rid of them. Absolutely not. But I think it's not a bad idea to bring somebody in, whether it's a kind of prospect that's got like a decent quality, or if it is a more experienced right back that can push him and drive him to actually do better, etc. Because I think out of the four main Australians that we've signed, obviously being Rose, Devlin, and Neuenhoff, I think he's the one that's kind of like not shown his full potential of what he can actually do, because obviously with with Neuenhoff in his first season, for example, he's grown in to that team, and each game as it went on, he's got better and better and better. Whereas, again, we've said this about a few players where Natty can be a bit hot and cold, So
yeah.
I think to bring in a bit more experience to help him be better, I think that I could be beneficial. But I mean, obviously we'll talk about it in a wee bit, but I think a right back and a potential new target man could be on the cards for a summer transfer. But obviously we will talk about that in a wee bit. If you don't mind, Alan, we'd like to move on to the more positive stuff. I know we've hardly talked about the Celtic game, but
Can I mention just one thing
of
before
course you
we
can.
do? Because I feel like it needs to be mentioned. Xander Clark got a lot of slack um, after the Celtic game, and he has
Isn't
had a lot of slack in other games this season.
isn't that a shock?
Yeah, and I understand why. Don't get me wrong, I understand why. But the pure and simple reason as to why is because he's not Craig Gordon. We all know that Craig Gordon is glorious. We all know he's a magnificent specimen of a human. However, Xander Clark is the Hearts' number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people say, oh, are we going to play Gordon from now to the end of the season? Maybe he'll start against Dundee. He won't. Like, Xander Clark is not going to lose the gloves this season, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Gordon play. I really, really would.
Mm-hmm.
But Xander Clark's the number one. And the thing for me is people slate Xander Clark for simple things like the first goal, and I know obviously we didn't really go too much into them all, but the first goal, he comes out for the corner and he punches it, and it goes straight to a Celtic player, and then they recycle it and they score. Xander's been doing that all season. He doesn't catch crosses. He likes to punch them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it goes wrong. It happens. Gordon comes out and catches the majority of those, and that's because they're two different kinds of goalkeepers that do that.
Mm-hmm.
But Craig Gordon is back after a horrific injury. Craig Gordon will be at Hearts next season unless he decides to hang up the gloves and call it a day, which I don't think he will.
No.
I would love for Craig Gordon to retire being the Hearts' number one goalkeeper. I really would. I want Craig Gordon to play, and I want him to retire on the pitch. I don't want him to retire sat on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
But that might happen. Do you know what I mean? Because as much as people don't like Xander Clark, he's not done a lot wrong. He's got a bloody good record of clean sheets this season, and he starts for 10 of the 12 teams in this league. So,
yes.
As much as we all love Craig Gordon, as much as we all think he's magnificent, I just felt that Xander Clark deserves a little bit of love as well, because I think he gets very, very unfairly treated on occasions, and it kind of gets to me a little bit.
Yeah, no, and Alan, can I say something that might actually trigger Hearts fans? Because I'm on
Feel
the same
free.
boat as you. I love Craig Gordon. We've said many times the man is out of this world. He's a fucking fantastic goalkeeper, captain, everything. But
Yeah.
I will say that the games that he's played and the games he's been involved in, he's not been that great. Let's be real. If they're going to slate Xander Clark, which, yeah, absolutely, he's made mistakes just like any other goalkeeper would. However, even when we did the Livingston game, like, the first goal, you could argue he
Yeah.
was at fault for. For the Rangers' first goal in the semi-final, I'll be very honest, I thought Craig could have done better. And we would probably be, if not more Hearts fans, would probably be saying the same thing if it was like it was Xander Clark in goal. I'm not saying it to have a go at Craig Gordon, absolutely not.
No.
But at the same time, I do agree with you that I think, it's the kind of like, the Robin Nielsen curse. Not everyone is going to like you just for the fact that you're not Craig Gordon, And look, I would love to see Gordon hang up his boots as the Hearts' number one. But again, Naismith's not going to think, well, he's essentially the club legend. I may as well put him in goal. No, it's not how it works. Yeah, granted that we've got him for our place done, he might just think, all right, okay, I'm going to let the younger ones sort of play a bit more. I'm going to have the Gordon in goals. I'm going to have Tagawa up front, etc. Blah 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 blah. But I think in terms of this particular subject matter, you're right. I think Xander Clark's mistakes is a lot more highlighted than they would be if it was a Gordon. But that's not to have a go at either of them. But I think,
No.
I think for some of the jumping on the bandwagon for Clark when we've got amazing man, let's just say, on the actual bench, you know. But I mean, as we said like a few weeks ago, I think we have to celebrate more that we've got two Scotland number ones in the fucking team.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
you
exactly.
know what I mean? You know,
Totally,
but
totally
anyhow,
agree. Totally agree.
we shall move on to the more positive stuff, Alan, because we're going on
Yeah.
holiday this year. So, as I said, with the Rangers win against Kilmarnock at Ibrox, that has officially, mathematically, undeniably secured third place, and which will guarantee European group stage football, at least the Conference League. Now, obviously, I know that we will have a knockout phase or qualifier, should I say, for the Europa League now. As most people will know, there is going to be a new format this year in terms of how the groups or the league, if you will, is going to actually work. Now, you'll probably be better and more efficient to explain this, Alan. So I'm going to pass it over to you. How does the group stages or the new league format work? At the worst case, if we do enter the Europa Conference League group stage.
Sure. So basically the powers that be at UEFA have decided that the current group stage format is old and they just want to completely muck about with it. Um, I don't know whether it'll be a good thing or a bad thing, the new format. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to be until we play it. It's meant to be, it's meant to make games mean more. So, like in a group stage of four teams, you sometimes get a game that doesn't mean anything because two of the teams are already, through to the next round, whatever. So that was their kind of reason. It means that all the games are important because you have to accumulate the most amount of points that you can. Essentially, we've qualified for a Europa League playoff. If we win that playoff, we then enter a group of 36 teams spread across, I think it's six pots. I think it's six pots of five teams. Anyway, my maths is terrible, so that might not add up.
Better than mine.
But yeah. So basically, we enter this big, massive league phase. We'll play six ties, three at home, three away, and the ties will be determined by again the pot system. So I think if Hearts get into the Europa League, I think we're in pot five of six. I could be wrong on that, but I seem to recall seeing a graphic about it that's just completely gone out of my head. And basically, the way it works, if you finish in the top eight, you go straight through to obviously the last 16. You make up the first of the eight of the 16. And then the teams from, I think it's obviously 9th to 24th, they qualify for a playoff where they play each other. And then eight teams obviously go through and you make up the last 16 and then the last eight, last four, final, etc. So basically, that's how Hearts will get to the final of the Europa League. If we miss out and we don't win the Europa League playoff, we drop into the Conference League, and the Conference League setup is exactly the same. There was some sort of figures going around that it's £5 million of prize money just for getting into the Europa League, which is pretty damn impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll obviously have your gate receipts and stuff and all the match day revenue that will come with that. So basically, third place is secured and we're fucking loaded and the Hearts are going to Europe. So that pretty much sums it up for you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Just while you're, I mean, obviously there isn't really else to touch up on the new system, but a question that I was going to ask, and I actually saw it this afternoon put up by our friend of the podcast, Daniel from the Perth to Paisley. Now, he put up an article from the Evening News about Lawrence Shankland, and it was an interesting thing because I'm pretty sure we had the same a conversation this time last year as well. And then it's an interesting thing because obviously, I mean, we can talk about it now because we're going to talk about it anyway. But obviously, with
Needs to be.
yeah, so obviously with Shankland entering his last year of his contract, it looks very likely that he wants to move, which I don't begrudge him for. Like first and foremost, I think he deserves a move if that's what he wants. And basically the argument was, do you sell Shankland now during the summertime? Obviously, his last year, his price tag will go down because teams can afford to do that in terms of an negotiation, like sort of wise, because
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so the price tag thrown around was 2 to 4 million quid. Do you get rid of Shanklin now if it's during this season's summer transfer window, or do you keep him for another year to increase that chance that we get another 5 million if we make third, obviously, for next year's European group stages? It's a it's a bit of a tough one because you get like a guaranteed £4 million now, or
yeah.
obviously you have to take into account other teams like doing well to get back to a competitive level with us, etc. What would your thoughts be on that, Alan?
I saw the same article as well, and obviously it
Mm,
follows the news of Shankland last night. It was the Heart Standard posted an article about Shankland with some quotes, basically saying
mm,
that while he's happy at Hearts and he respects Hearts massively, and it's not meant in any way a dig at Hearts because he wouldn't do that. He does have his eyes set potentially on a higher level because he feels like, you know what, maybe he could reach a higher level and go and play in a higher level. Um, and obviously, he's just won the PFA Player of the Year, voted for by the other players in Scottish football. Um, so he's okay. He's not won a league, he's not won a cup, but he's kind of done everything he can
mm.
realistically do at Hearts. Let's be honest. Aside from obviously winning a cup, he scored goals in Europe, scored in every ground in Scottish football, apart from Dingwall, I believe. Didn't score against County. But yeah, he's completed it in that sense. And I
Mm.
think from his point of view, I totally get it. I totally understand. He's 28 now. He's probably looking at the future going,
Mm.
if I could get a payday, a last big contract for
Yeah.
3 years, earn my money. He's got a young family as well. So I totally understand that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand where Hearts are coming from, and I understand why we didn't sell him in January because it didn't make sense to do that. Because obviously that would have been a massive kick in the balls for the second half of the season. But they do have a decision to make now, whether they let him go in the summer and they get some money, or they feel his value is more important to keep him, for one more year and see out his
Yeah.
contract for nothing. And I said when we've done that before with the likes of Suter and Gino, letting players leave for nothing when they've contributed something. And I'm always kind of that way of I'd rather they left. I'd rather they left for nothing because at least we get them for another year.
Mm-hmm.
But Shankland, you're right about his value will be dropping a little bit because obviously he's into the last year of his contract. But if he goes to the Euros with Scotland, maybe scores a goal over there,
Mm-hmm.
you never know. That
Yeah.
would retain some value. And this guy is the top scorer currently in Scottish football or in the Scottish Premier League. And he's just won the best player award in the Scottish Premier League. So he does have some value. So Hearts do have, they hold some cards in it. It's not entirely on Shankland. And whilst the article that Heart Standard put up was a difficult one to read, I kind of felt, well, there's nothing in that we didn't already know.
Yeah.
It's just Shankland saying, I'd like to explore another opportunity if there's something else to explore, which is entirely fair.
Yeah.
And you can't begrudge him that. It'll be up to the club what they do. I don't know. If it was me, if I was in a position where I had to make that decision, I'd be saying to Shankland, look, unless we get the right offer for you that we feel is worth it, you're going to stay here next season. And because his play, and obviously, I mean, we'll probably talk more about this at the end of the season podcast that we'll do, but
Mm.
Shankland is invaluable. He
Yeah.
is irreplaceable in that position. Nobody that we currently have plays like him. And you're not going to find another Lawrence Shankland. I know people say, oh, if we get 4 million, we can go and get Majowski off Aberdeen. Absolutely not. Aberdeen
Majowski's
will
not
not
the
sell.
answer. Yeah.
But
Like he's
Majowski's
not
a
the answer
very
to
good
anything.
Majowski's a very good player, but
Yeah.
Aberdeen are not going to let him go for that. Like they won't. They'll have their eyes set on 6, 7, 8 million from a team abroad, and they'll probably get that.
Mm.
So I really don't know. But end of the day, I don't begrudge him if he wants to go, and it'll be sad. It'll be very sad. But the club will have to be planning what they do next because a big decision is going to need to be made. And Naismith is the man that's going to have to make that decision. And it's huge for him, for such a young manager, to have to make a call like that so early in his career. But listen, the main thing that I'll say is the point that I wanted to make was Shankland said in that article, if I'm still here at Hearts for another year, I'm happy with that because I'm happy where I am. You know, a load of his teammates went along to the PFA Player Awards and were with him, celebrating. I think Cammy Devlin was there, Kent was there, I'm sure Civic was there. There was a whole load of them, George Grant, a whole load of them basically went up for a piss up to congratulate Shankland, and it shows you how valued he is. So I don't know. I honestly do not know what the club are going to do. I hope they make the right decision. Put it that way.
Well, with that as well, we would love to hear all your thoughts on that and your comments. So please um, put them in the comment section, and we'll most likely put a post on it on our Twitter account as well. Of course, but as always, we shall keep track as well of the ever growing Shankland situation as it has been for the last year. I mean, in a small way as well, whatever happens, it'll be nice not to talk about it as well, and we can get back to talking about other things. And as said, lastly on the podcast, we will look ahead to the never more meaningless game against Dundee at home. As we talked about, Alan, the 3 points doesn't really particularly matter. But in that same sense, well, I think the main question that I think will be a bit more interesting, as we mentioned at the very start, what do you think a Naismith team will look like now? Obviously, with like third place all wrapped up, do you look a bit more to the younger side of the squad and give them some more minutes, or as we said, a lot of people would like to see Gordon in between the sticks. It could be good to play Tagawa a bit more, just to give him a wee boost. But obviously, I'm sure that Shankland will still be looking to get his 30 goals for the season. So, you got the likes of Tate, you've got Denham, like Pollock as well. If you're Stephen Naismith in that dugout, what would your team personally look like for this weekend?
I would still go relatively strong, to be honest. I get what you mean and I understand it. And like I could see him doing that. I could see him putting a couple of the young lads in, but I still think he'll go relatively strong because obviously we haven't won a game in the split yet. We got
Mm.
a draw against Kilmarnock, and that's been us. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what the lineup looks like. I still think Clark will play.
Mm.
But again, like I said earlier, would I complain if Gordon played? Absolutely not. I just don't think he will. Um, and yeah, look, Shankland, like you've just said it there, Shankland's still chasing that 30 goals. He's on 28, 29 if you count his Scotland goal, but whether you do or you don't, 28 goals in all competitions for Hearts is pretty impressive. Couple of or 3 games to go, so he could hopefully get another couple of goals. Yeah, I don't think it'll be massive changes. I think maybe Tate or Denham might get a bit of a run out. In terms of injuries, I think it's really just the same old usual ones that aren't
Mm.
available as haven't been for the last few weeks. There was something else mentioned during the week, which was Halkett and Boyce won't play again this season, despite being back to training. They're just not going to be fully fit or match fit before the end of the season. So Naismith pretty much confirming that they're not going to feature. Neuenhoff as well isn't going to feature to the end of to the start of next season. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the lineup looks like. But I still think that Naismith will go relatively strong. I wonder if one player that we haven't really spoken about contract wise is Benny. It looking very very likely that he's not going to sign a new contract either, which will mean he goes in the summer as well. Um, so we might not see him. It might be a case of Naismith looking at other options in that midfield. But I don't think so, to be honest. I think Naismith will just go with his tried and tested Devlin, Benny, Shankland, Vargas. I think your guaranteed starters will be in there. And defence, I wouldn't expect many changes either, because I don't think we've got many injuries in there either. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but I wouldn't expect it to be some sort of experiment. I know, obviously, we're on the beach because third place is secured. As far as Saturday's atmosphere is going to go, it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere because obviously it's the first game since we secured third place, so it'll be great to be in amongst that. Yeah, like I think I can understand if he was to experiment, but I don't think he will effectively.
And on that note as well, I'm going to ask for predictions, and if you don't mind, I'm going to put myself forward just so I know that, well, just so everybody else knows that I'm not just copying you. So yeah, I could probably see that. I think the usual thing to do for any manager when they've not got anything else to play for would be to play maybe a bit more of the younger squad. But again, I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be a massive change. I think there might be one, max two, that comes into the starting lineup that aren't usually featured. But I think we'll still be quite heavy duty in terms of the squad itself. So with that in mind, I will predict a 2-0 win to Hearts against Dundee at the weekend.
Nice.
What about yourself?
Nice. Well, I just quickly looked up there because I just wanted to double check. The last two games that we played against them have both finished 3-2, and we beat them 3-2 at Tynecastle in January. Oda getting the goal right at the end to win it for us, and then the 3-2 game in Dundee when Shankland scored late to win it for us there as well. Dundee are an odd team because obviously they're just newly promoted, and they finished top six, which is a massive credit to them and their team and their manager. But they too don't really have anything to play for either. I'm not sure if they can get into the European conversation. I don't know if there's enough points for them to finish fifth, maybe, because I don't know. That's the one thing I need to look up is the seedings of who gets what, based off of obviously who wins the cup, etc. I'm not sure if there's another European position. I think there might be.
I think there is.
So we could find ourselves in a position where either St Mirren or Dundee have some form of European qualifiers to play, which would be brilliant for both of them, to be fair. So there might still be something for Dundee to play for. I'm confident in Hearts, and I'm confident that, with the atmosphere, and, I'm sure it'll be a packed house as usual. I'm going to go for a Hearts win. I'm going to go for 3-1 rather than 3-2. I'm going 3-1.
Fair dues, man. Fair dues. Well, as always, we would love to hear all your score predictions for the weekend as well. As I mentioned, the Shankland saga as well. And a good question, I think, would be to ask as well is that what destination will you hope for in the European group stages as well? We would love to hear all your suggestions and your personal favourites and any particular team you would like to visit or to visit Tynecastle as well. We'd love to hear all of that. So from both of us, thank you very much for watching. Always deeply appreciated. And once again, if you haven't subscribed just yet, please think about subscribing. And for anybody for anybody going to the Dundee game, me and Alan are potentially going as well. So it'll be nice to be a part of the celebrations as well. And we hope to see you there as well. So from myself and Alan, thank you very much as always, and we will see you in the next one. Y'all take care. Bye for now. Whoop-de-woo.